Before closing this thing up, I'll give a full overview. So coming out of the ALP motherboard is this wire right here, which is the sound output. You're going to splice some wire into that, and you're going to drill a hole in your ALP and drop that down below the ALP. Now let's go below. All right, we're now below the front of the machine. So that wire I pointed coming out is this wire right here, which I've wired in a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and that is going to the input. If you don't have that, there is an adapter that I will put in the description for a auxiliary adapter, 3.5 to auxiliary. Then we have our speaker wires, both coming out of the left output. I have twisted two sets of wires together to make a parallel circuit. These are going to go back up into the ALP. This is where I have the wires coming back up out of the output of the amplifier, and they are running to my two exciters. So I got one on the left here, one on the right there, and that's about it. You want to secure all your wires. I'll show that once I got it all done. Secure them all because they will vibrate and make noise. You have to pull this switch out to get this in here. It's a little bit of a headache, but it's really not that difficult. And yeah, then you got to put it all back together and do a bunch of adjustments. Sorry for the flashing. I think that's just my camera picking up the LED light weird because it's not flashing in real life. What you're going to need to complete this project is some sort of amplifier. This is one I got off Amazon, the Leppy LP 2020A. You have to make sure you buy one with the power adapter. A lot of them don't have a power adapter because they can be wired in through automotive power, and you won't require this. So what we got here is basic adjustment controls, power on and off, and you have your audio in, power in, and audio out. You will need some way to hook your ALP to the amp. So this is 2-wire to a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. I will show you where this gets wired in. So depending on the amp you get, I might just have to use this because this has a input for 3.5 millimeter headphones. But I also bought these. These are 3.5 millimeter headphone jacks to auxiliary. So this would plug into there. Some amps don't have that 3.5 millimeter plug, and then you would plug this into there and this into there. You will also need the Dayton exciters. Which ones are these again? These are DAE X25 exciters. Yeah. There we go. They look like these guys. So this will stick on, and this is what will make the thump of your flippers. You will need some wire of some sort. This is speaker wire, but I'm sure you can use pretty much any wire. One end will be going to here, like so. There you go. And then the other end will be going into your Dayton exciters into these ports. You will need some way to connect the wires to the ALP machine. These are heat shrink butt connectors. You could solder it. You can use the kind of home style wiring twist-on ones. Lots of ways to connect wires. I would not suggest just twisting them though. I would find an actual way to connect them. You'll need something to crimp these. So this is obviously wire strippers you'll need for stripping the wires, cutters for cutting the wires, and then this has the different wire sizes for crimping butt connectors. You'll need some screws. This is going to be mounted underneath the ALP, kind of hidden from view, and you'll need some screws to screw it in to hold it in place. You're going to need drill bits and a drill to drill holes for the wires to run through and for the screws to mount. There's some optional things. You can buy just bulk ties. These are just black cable ties. Get super cheap pack of a couple hundred for a couple bucks on Amazon. Here is the ALP with the sidebars taken off and the front panel. Let's get in here. So this right here is the wire that hooks up to your front panel. It has the D-pad and your stock exciters. You just disconnect it quite easily. It's two little things you push in. This runs to your motherboard on your ALP, and this is where the sound outputs from for your stock exciters. So this is what we want to connect to. You can buy these connectors right here. Let me get it to you. So here's your base plate. There's your stock exciters. Mine have fallen off and just really, in general, suck. You can buy these connectors in packs off Amazon. I'll put the name in the description if you don't want to actually cut or damage any part of your machine. But I'm going to use this so I can cut these wires, and then I can work outside of the case. I don't really want to work in there. It's kind of tight and a crappy place to work. So I'm going to cut these wires and make it my own wiring connector and everything out of this. So here is your front panel with the D-pad. What I'm trying to save is this connector right here, because that'll plug back into the ALP's wiring that's already in place. I want to cut them right here where they already have heat shrunk on there, so that if I need to warranty this or something, I can make those connections again and just buy some heat shrink, stick it back on there, and no one will be the wiser. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to give myself a couple just inches of room. These wires are really thin. Okay, so there we go. I got my piece of wiring, and my goal will be to connect this to it. Here is my speaker wiring. I have a huge roll right here. I haven't figured out the size I want yet, so I'm going to do this so that when I start assembling it, I can just cut the size I need. So I gotta strip these. These wires are ridiculously thin. Wow. I don't know, can you even see that on there? It's like a total of like 4 or 6 strands of wire. It's actually making me wonder if these butt connectors that I have will even work for it. These legitimately might be too thick. I almost might be better to connect it like this in one side, just to get a better crimp, which is I think what I'm going to do. Normally you would put a wire on one side and a wire on the other side, but I think these are just going to be simply too thin to really grab onto this. They do make smaller sizes, which would be ideal. They make red ones, but I'm going to do it this way. It'll still make a good connection, so let's do that. I think soldering would probably be the best method. So if you're using speaker wire, there is one that is kind of a silver color and one that's a copper color. Just make sure you remember which red or black wire you connect it to, so that when you're plugging into your amp or your speakers, I guess, you know where you're going. I'm just showing here how to connect the wires. I fast forward it because you don't need to watch me do the whole process. Basically put the buck connector on with the two wires going in one side because they're very small wires. Then you crimp it with the crimper. Give it a test, see how it feels. Give it a little pull. Don't gotta pull too hard. And if you're using heat shrink butt connectors, shrink it with a torch lighter of some sort from the inside towards the outside. That just helps with the connection because it kind of glues the wires together. And then once I show this side, I do the other side, and I didn't really need to play that in regular speed because that takes too long. Let's take a quick second to talk about speaker impedance and the rating of amps. So this amp right here, you can see in the back, says speaker impedance rated for 4 to 8 ohms. Dayton exciters are 8 ohm transducers or bass shakers, whatever you want to call them. So what that means is I've seen a lot of people do this and not put much thought into this. Some people will wire it in from a single, one of the single sound sources. They'll go into one, from here back to this one, and back. That would be putting them in series, making that a single 16 ohm speaker basically, which would mean this is not rated to run 16 ohms, so you wouldn't be getting your max power out of it. Now if you run them in parallel, that would mean using one source going into each one. So split this off. So 2 wires come out of this black into here, or 2 wires come out of this black, 1 to here, 1 to here, 2 come out of the red, 1 to here, to here. That will make them 4 ohm speakers. That's how our parallel series works. There's math to do it called Ohm's law. So since this is rated 4 to 8, I have to do mine in parallel. So you'll have to figure out what ohm of an amp you get. It's not, you don't have to overthink it. It's not that big of a deal. You just, if you're doing 2, say that this was only rated for 8 ohms and I made these 4 ohms, it would be working this harder. Say that I made these 16 ohms and it's only rated up to 8 ohms, you wouldn't be getting your max potential out of it. Okay, we're now underneath the ALP. Here's the on and off switch that's on the right when you're up top facing it. I'm figuring out where to mount my wires and my amp. So a lot of people mount it right up front. It's hard to see. I'll get a better angle in a bit. A lot of people mount it right up front so you can access the controls easily. But I don't plan on really adjusting this after I get it set up, and I don't want other people messing with it because they see a bunch of knobs there. So I think I'm going to mount it off to the side so I can easily get to the controls, but it's not obvious that it's there. And then I got to figure out where to run my wires out. So the main cable for your front panel runs along the center. So as long as I don't drill into the center, you're good. So I'm gonna figure out a place here. I guess it doesn't have to be. I'm gonna go about there, and then the wires. I got a big enough drill bit here so that the wires can easily run in and out. I'm not caring about making it super clean and tight because you're never gonna see this. So I'm gonna go about there. There you go. So I got a nice hole, and now I can start running wires. I drilled nice and slow because there's like a paper cover on this, and I didn't want to push it out and have it all wrecked on the inside. Okay, now I'll show you once everything's ran a little better. The wires on my 3.5 connector are super thin, just like the ALP wires. So I'm going to do the same method as before and just use one side of a butt connector. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but I used some Gorilla Tape to kind of secure this little wire bundle I got here. Might have to get one of those self-adhesive little clamps that you can zip tie to, but this will do for now. So I'm just figuring how I want to put this. I don't really want it in the center like that. I think I'm going to do like this. I'm going to get it kind of square where I'm happy with it. And I'm going to mark some drill spots. Secure. Now I can officially plug this in. Okay, so that part is completed. Okay, so we are underneath the ALP again. This is the front of it here. Here's your power switch. These are my two sets of wires that are going to run to the actual exciters. So keeping with the same theme, I'm going to go copper to copper. This is going to be the easiest way, I think, for me to do parallel wiring, is I'm just going to twist a set of wires together and put it directly into the amplifier like that, rather than running one wire and splitting it up top. So I got copper to copper, and I'll get silver to silver here. Sorry if you can't see this, I'm filming at an awkward angle. And we discovered that it only comes out of the left speaker. So I'm going to go my copper to the red, which is kind of the thing I've been doing the whole time. There we go. And I'm going to go the silver looking one to the ground side. There we go. This exciter near the plunger side is very hard to get in there. You're going to have to take the switch off. So the switch is very easy to take apart. This just threads on the back of it, so it's in this position. So you just unthread this, and that will loosen the switch. The connectors for the switch have a tiny little locking tab. I don't know if you can even pick that up on the camera. Right, where's the wire? Right where that copper wire is a tiny little locking tab. I had to use a pin to push that down, and then they'll slide off. So don't just pull them, because you can damage the switch. If you look at the switch, it has little holes on the pins, and it locks onto that. And then to get the exciter in place, it's very hard to get your fingers in here, especially once you have your tape off. It's going to stick to everything. So I have attached just a little section of wire. So I'm going to hopefully be able to sneak it in there, rotate it where I want it, and then stick it down. It's going to have to go a little bit of an angle so that the wires can go on there still. I'll probably wire it in before I even put the switch back in, so that I'm not dealing with all that in the way. I didn't catch any good footage of me installing the wires to the exciters and how I installed the left exciter, so I'm just going to use this image here to show you how that's done, because it's quite simple. So these wires that I'm pointing at right here are the ones coming out of the left output of the amplifier. This wire that you see on the left here is running up and into the exciter. That exciter on the left, you don't have to take anything off. There's lots of room. You can just get it the angle you want, clean up the surface with alcohol, or at least wipe it down, stick that on there. The wire here, which is kind of under the screen, goes to the right exciter. So that's the one I just showed you that you have to take the switch off. And you want to angle a little bit so your wires don't run directly into that switch. So I want to do a little mock setup to test how the amp and everything would work together. So I just have the wire running out the front here, no holes drilled yet, and I'm glad I tested it, because Let's get it in view here. So I have these each coming out of one of the channels. So this one's on the left channel or right channel, and this one's on the left channel. So when I turn it up, only the left channel is actually doing anything. So that means however they have this audio signal coming is only activating the left channel. So I'm going to have to hook them up in series, or sorry, I'm going to have to hook them up in parallel to get the 4 ohm impedance. So it's always good to test stuff before you hard mount it. Feels like it'll be pretty good.